happens when you clone the most expensive horse in the world, but your business partner stabs you in the back? If you haven't heard of the horse cloning wars that are taking over the sport of polo, this might be the coolest science and tech story you hear this week. This is Adolfo Cambiaso. He's the best polo player to ever walk the earth. But if you notice closely at his horses from this match in 2016, all his horses have this characteristic white stripe down their nose. This is because these horses are not just related, they are clones of each other. And they're clones of one of the best horses that has ever played polo, his prized mare called Cuartetera. But these clones were not his idea. You see, the sport of polo is ridiculously expensive. But did you know that sponsors sponsor team not just for advertisement and bragging rights, but to play in the teams? Imagine if you could sponsor the Lakers and then play basketball alongside them. That is totally ridiculous. But the reason why it's so expensive is because horses can only run at those maximum speeds that they need to during polo for a very short while. So most players bring over 10 horses to each game, and each team needs to maintain hundreds of horses on their rotation. And that includes training, feeding, transportation, vet bills, and all kinds of other things. And Cuartetera is one of those horses that just performs incredibly well. She's fast, elegant, smart, reacts well, and she is Adolfo's most prized possession. But in 2009, Adolfo meets with Alan Meeker, a real estate and natural gas tycoon from Texas. He also has his own plans for cloning as he's suffering from type 1 diabetes, and he has gotten very interested in this whole biotechnology space. After a brief verbal agreement, red flag, they decide to join forces and try to clone some of Adolfo's most prized horses, including Cuartetera. Cloning is not such an easy process, and back in 2010, the technology was still quite new, so they didn't know what they were creating or whether they would be able to sell it for high amounts. But in 2010, they're ready to join one of the most high-end auctions in the world of polo and sell off some of the clones they have made of Cuartetera. This is when the third person in this trio comes in. His name is Ernesto Gutierrez. He's an Argentine airport tycoon, and he tells Adolfo in the last minute before the horses go up in auction that he's making a huge mistake. Cuartetera's son has sold for over $500,000 at the stage, and he goes, if you sell one of the clones, you're selling Cuartetera herself. Everybody's gonna be able to copy her, and you're not ever gonna be able to take her back. So the trio form a company together and realize that their biggest advantage is on selling the sons and daughters of Cuartetera and keeping the clones for themselves. Now, this is still a very tricky process. One of the funny things with cloning females specifically is that because we have two X chromosomes, one of them will get inactivated randomly in each and every cell. And this is why you see some female cloned animals have completely different patterns of their body, is because their X inactivation just happens at a random pattern that you cannot really control through genetics. For 10 years, this trio is running some of the most frontier advanced cloning operation in the entire world, working as one unit. They call themselves the Dream Team. They're cloning Cuartetera over and over again, and Adolfo's career is just taking off. His son is 14 or 15 at the time and is growing up, quickly becoming a polo protege himself. They're hoping that once Panotto, his son, grows up a little bit more, they will both play together, each riding a perfect clone and a perfect copy of Cuartetera herself. But in October of 2020, it all starts going downhill. Alan Meeker takes a secretive meeting inside a super yacht. He's meeting this guy, Andrei Borodin. He's the former president of the Bank of Moscow who fled Russia in 2011 and one of the most celebrated patrons and sponsors of one of the polo teams called Park Place. And again, because of the rules we mentioned before, Andrei plays polo himself alongside his players. The way that polo kind of accounts for this discrepancy in talent is that they give players handicaps. The best players have a handicap of 10, and the worst players, usually the sponsors, have a handicap of 0. Inside that super yacht, Andrei and Alan agreed to a sale of 3 of Cuartetera's clones for $2.4 million. But both of them mistrust each other. Andrei wants to keep part of the money in escrow in case Alan or Adolfo sue later to get the clones back. But Alan is very keen to sell these clones, And of course, he doesn't tell his business partner. Alan Meeker doesn't stop there. He realizes that these clones are worth their weight in gold, and he goes behind the backs of his business partners in order to strike more and more deals. One of the deals is with one of Adolfo's biggest rivals, who is also married to Adolfo's sister. So Alan is trying to sell a clone of Adolfo's horse to his brother-in-law. We know about all this because in December of 2020, Adolfo figures this whole ploy out and an explosive legal battle ensues. While awaiting trial, the judge orders the 3 clones that were sold to Andre to be returned back to Adolfo and Ernesto. But that does not stop Alan. It turns out that he had been striking all kinds of deals. There wasn't a way to know for sure that a tissue sample wasn't kept by any of his adversaries. And soon enough, there's rumors in the polo community that Cuartetera's DNA has actually been renamed and being sold under a different name. Meanwhile, the original Cuartetera dies in 2023, and Adolfo obviously finds this extremely distressing, while millions of dollars are being spent in the legal battle for her DNA and cloning her further. It all magically comes to an end when both sides announce in March of 2025 that they have somehow reached an agreement. So we still don't know which clones are actually Cuartetera and who has the rights to cloning her now.